Today, it's about self-correcting without self-destructing. Most people think that they struggle with failure. You're very self-critical if something doesn't work right. But it's not exactly true. Most people can tolerate failure in small doses, especially when it's external, explainable, or shared. What people really struggle with is what happens inside after the failure. Do you collapse? Do you attack yourself? Do you catastrophize? Form a narrative that's not so friendly to yourself? You turn a single error into a verdict about competence and, more importantly, self-worth. You build a story that is far bigger than the actual situation and then live inside that story as if it's reality. That's self-destruction. It is one of the most expensive habits a team member can normalize. Self-correction is a skill. Self-destruction is a habit. The difference between them is not whether you care. Self-destructive people often care more than anyone else. The difference is orientation. Self-correction is oriented toward learning and adjustment. Self-destruction is oriented toward punishment and protection. Here's what I mean. When something goes wrong, your nervous system reacts first. There's embarrassment, personal threat. There's a spike of fear about judgment or status or belonging or competence. That reaction is human, but it's not a character flaw. It does not mean that you're weak. Here's what matters. It's about what happened next. A lot of people treat the sting of failure as proof that they're responsible. They believe that if they punish themselves internally, it means they're taking accountability. They believe harshness equals seriousness. They believe shame is the price of growth. The belief is common, but it's not true. Shame narrows your attention. It reduces curiosity. It pushes people into hiding, defensiveness, or overcompensation. It makes mistakes feel dangerous. You can try and talk yourself out of it, but that's not going to work. Because when mistakes feel dangerous, learning becomes slow and distorted. Teams do not break because mistakes happen. They break because mistakes become psychologically expensive to examine. Think about yourself. Think about the team you work with. Once that happens, people start doing predictable things. They delay feedback. They hide uncertainty. They choose safe work over valuable work. They avoid risk. They avoid visibility. And they avoid ownership. On paper, that might start to look like professionalism. They're doing their job and not talking about it. But in reality, it's just armor. It's self-protection. The irony is that teams punish mistakes the hardest, often believe they have the highest standards, but they don't. They have the highest fear, and fear is not a standard. It's a constraint. It's holding you back. High standards plus fear equals fragility. High standards plus learning equals growth. Above average team members are not immune to embarrassment or regret or failure. They feel it. They just don't turn it into their identity. They don't globalize it. They don't catastrophize. They don't convert a local error into a global verdict about who they are. They treat the error as data. And you can treat the emotions associated with it the same way. This isn't not about being cold, but it's about being disciplined and real. You understand the purpose of self-correction is to keep momentum alive while improving the system. If correction becomes self-attack, momentum dies. And if momentum dies, the system doesn't improve. This is why self-correction has to be calm. Calm does not mean soft. Calm results in precision. When you're emotionally escalated, you distort, you defend, you make the error about you. When you're calm, you can start to see through the fog. You can see what actually happened. So, what does self-correction look like when it's done well? Okay, it starts with the refusal to do the most tempting thing, which is to blame. The mind loves stories. Stories to protect your ego, stories to make uncertainty feel controllable, and stories that are often wrong. They're especially wrong when they're created while you feel threatened. Instead of narrating, try interrogating instead. Ask, what did I assume that wasn't true? What signal did I miss? What constraint changed? What step did I skip? What did I overestimate? What did I underestimate? And what part of the system failed to support the behavior I expected? Those questions are not self-indulgent. They're accountable. They keep attention on what can change, what you can have an impact on, what you can control. This is the point where a lot of people confuse accountability with pain. They think if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. It's just childish, but it's common. Real accountability is not how badly you beat yourself up. Real accountability is whether you adjust your behavior. If you're brutal to yourself but do nothing differently, you didn't take accountability. You just performed suffering. Above average team members don't perform suffering. They adjust instead. They also understand something subtle about identity. When you attach your self-worth to being right, you will always struggle to learn. When you attach your self-worth to improvement, mistakes become tolerable. They're stepping stones. This is where growth mindset really matters, but it's more than a poster you put on your wall. In fact, if you have a poster about it, take it down right now. In Carol Dweck's work, where we learn about growth mindset, the shift is not about saying, I can do anything. The shift is that ability is not a fixed verdict. It's something that responds to effort and feedback and strategy. That framing changes what failure means. Failure becomes information about process, not evidence of inadequacy. That shift is the difference between self-correction and self-destruction. Now, let's make this concrete with a scenario that teams live through constantly. Imagine you made a call, a decision, confidently, and it turned out to be wrong. Maybe it created downstream rework. Maybe somebody had to clean it up. Maybe it made you look sloppy. Maybe you spent money on marketing that had zero impact. The sting of all those things are real, and the self-destructive path is an immediate narrative. Oh, I'm just careless. I always do this. I'm not cut out for this. People won't trust me now. Then comes either hiding or over-explaining or blaming or withdrawing. Now let's look at the self-corrective path, because it's different. It's still honest, but it's not cruel. It sounds more like this. That was wrong. I own it. Here's what I assumed. Here's what I missed. Here's what I'm adjusting next time. And here's what I'll do to repair the impact. You notice what's missing? There was no identity verdict. There's no theater for suffering and pain. There is no collapse. There is repair and learning. This is what builds trust. It's not perfection. It's that repairing. It's the honest assessment. Teams that repair are able to move faster. Teams that can't repair move slow because every mistake becomes political or a topic for the next team meeting. Self-correction is also a team health behavior. When one person models calm self-correction, it lowers fear for everyone. It signals that learning is allowed, that errors can be surfaced early, that truth can be spoken without punishment. Now, you need to understand that we're not just correcting ourselves. You're helping shape the environment that you work in. Here's the practice for this episode. It's simple, but uncomfortable. Next time something doesn't go well, listen to that internal voice. If it's global, absolute, identity-based, or cruel, stop. Just stop. You're punishing.
Stop it!
Then ask the question, what is the next adjustment? Not what is wrong with me, but what changes need to be made so this doesn't happen again. Make the change concrete. Make it behavioral. Make it visible. Close the loop with anyone affected. That is accountability. That is self-correction. That is what keeps you improving without burning down.